Warnick.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Brian, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Carl.
Thank you, sir. We're live.
All right. Right on time. Very good. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 22nd business meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees. Let us begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I have a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America.
And to the
republic which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, it's official. We have the majority of the board present. Mr. Budny is excused, but we do have a quorum, so we'll begin with the business on the agenda. We have no presentation scheduled for tonight. With that, I'll entertain, or let's discuss possibly any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda. Any offered? With none offered, no additions or deletions offered, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published. Okay, moved by treasurer.
Second.
And second by Mr. Bloetscher. Those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda stands approved as published. With that, we'll open up to brief public comment limited to tonight's two agenda items. And I'm going to try to get a little more volume here. Okay, Mr. Friedel, are there any members of the public who wish to opine?
I'm sorry, I was helping somebody out. We do have a few members of the public in the audience here. There's only like 4.
I'll offer if they wish to make if they wish to comment on the tonight's agenda items. Nobody, no interest? Okay, they must be happy so far. With that, let's move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Treasurer.
Move to approve consent agenda 20-011. That includes the Township Board of Trustees 2018 minutes. That'll be the May meeting. Check register dated through June 19th, 2020. Check register for 6/22/20 board meeting. Invoice register for 6/22/20 board meeting. Memorial tree for Officer Richard Proctor. 33rd District Court 2019 financial report, except the 33rd District. I just read that. And that would be it.
Okay, moved by treasurer on the consent agenda. Looking for a second.
Second.
Okay, I'll give that to Mrs. O'Connor. All right, so moved by the treasurer, second by Mrs. O'Connor. Any comments among the board on tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, Brian, I'd like to make a comment regarding the memorial tree.
Yes, Mr. Bloetscher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I had the pleasure of working with and knowing Rick Proctor for the better part of 28 years. He was a really very, very good person. Says in his biography that he was a son, a father, and a township employee, but he was also a great friend. I had the distinct impression of dealing with Rick Proctor on POAM contracts. He was very fair, but he was very tough. In his commemorative wording, it says, in this family, no one fights alone. I would suggest that Rick Proctor also had another saying when I was negotiating with him: when the contract was in his favor, follow the contract. When the contract was against him, but he had a better idea, do the right thing. Above all else, he was fair, and I wholeheartedly endorse this memorial nomination. Would ask the entire board to pass that unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, just in reviewing the minutes of the last meeting, I would like to suggest that we add that it also states the meeting was held by Zoom. You know, the minutes state that we were in the boardroom, and that's our usual format, but I would suggest we add the line, due to COVID-19, the meeting was held via Zoom.
I overlooked that reviewing the minutes, and that's a valid amendment to the meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, and then it will be so recorded. Any other comments on tonight's consent agenda? None offered. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda with the amendment to the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, none offered. Let's move on to tonight's action items. And I'm going to ask, because Treasurer Van Os is still on the DPS commission, I'm going to ask him to introduce. We have two. And Mr. Treasurer, would you introduce the first, the excavation contract, please?
Correct. It's based on the recommendation of the Grosse Ile Public Service Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board includes contract to low bidder Campo Brothers for excavation services for the term of 30 years based on the cost list attached in the attached rate sheet.
Okay, moved by the treasurer.
Second,
Seconded by Clerk O'Connor.
I'm on a roll.
Hand this over to Derek, or continue briefing us on the history.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Good evening. The action item before you, as Treasurer Van Os had mentioned, is the extension of a contract with Campo Brothers. We've been working with Campo Brothers since about 2013. The contract that they're currently working under expired in 2014, at which point it reverted to a month-to-month contract. So being that we prefer to have active contracts with all of our vendors, we decided to go to bid on these services. The areas that we advertise are listed in the history, purpose, and explanation, but we did put the word out everywhere that we possibly could think of. And unfortunately, we only did receive one bid, but the one bid was from the current service provider. The cost sheet that's attached represents a slight decrease in all areas of pricing with them. So the DPS commission was confident in those prices. They're also confident, as well as the DPS department, with the services that Campo Brothers has provided for the township. They know our staff well. They know our community well. They've proven to be an asset to us and have done a very good job in the period of time that we've been using them, which obviously is about 7 years. So this would be an extension of the contract for 36 months. Legal has formulated that contract verbiage, and it's attached to the action item. So if you have any questions about the contract itself, I know Tom's on the call, so I hope we can answer those for you. But in saying that, do you have any questions relative to this action item?
Derek, I read through the contract. It's I've seen a lot of these before. It's pretty much boilerplate. I'm glad that, curious as to why Campo was the only bidder. Maybe it's just nobody else wanted to take their chances getting equipment across the bridge. But I'm glad to see Campo still interested in taking care of this community.
Yeah, and that was kind of the question that some of the DPS members had, was just the one bid, and I think maybe the bridge has something to do with it. The bid specifications, we were pretty specific about what we were looking for, so I'm sure with the capabilities that we requested, some vendors were not capable of meeting that. For example, Campo Brothers does all our underground work, but they also do our plowing activities. And then also we require that they're able to service us with one field crew and one on standby. So maybe some of the smaller firms weren't able to provide that level of service. And that level of service is necessary because of the work that we do. If we have a water main break and another one pops up, we can't wait for that crew to finish up one to move to the next. We got to have those capabilities ready to be deployed. So there's a lot of reasons why Campo is a good fit. Like I said before, it wasn't for lack of trying. The advertisement went out to the publication of record, Construction Association of Michigan, Construct Connect, Dodge Construction Leads, Michigan Builders Exchange of Michigan, and the Mitten Trade Network. We definitely blanketed all the publications and areas we normally advertise with advertisement. So we felt pretty confident we did our due diligence to try to get as many bids as possible. Unfortunately, it's just the one, but it's the one that's a proven commodity with their 7 years of service with us.
Well, I'm happy with the one that decided to bid. So, other questions for Mr. Thiel? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Derek, do you foresee a time when the township can return to doing its own excavation work, or is it working so well for us that we want to keep up hiring an outside contractor?
I think the arrangement is working out pretty well for us. The staffing levels that we have right now within the department don't necessarily support underground activities. We really have 3 full-time employees, and for a township the size of Groseal, that's barely enough staff just to keep up with the responsibilities that we do have without subbing out the underground work. So I think if the township were to consider expanding to underground work once again, it would mean a pretty lengthy conversation about the financial impact that expanding the department would have against what the privatization of these services currently costs the township. So.
Okay, that's very good to know. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments for Mr. Thiel? All right. We just do a voice vote. Okay, based on the recommendation by the Groseal Department of Public Services Commission, the Groseal Township Board approves a contract with low bidder Campo Brothers for excavation services for the term of 36 months based upon costs listed on the attached rate sheet. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next action item. Again, Mr. Treasurer.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Based on the recommendation of the Groseal Town Public Service Department or committee, Groseal Township hereby awards the contract to Fishback Engineering for $15,000 to perform the water treatment plant maintenance audit. Derek, you want
Second.
Okay, moved by the treasurer, seconded by Trustee Nelson. And fill us in, Eric.
Before you is a request to hire a consultant for a wastewater treatment plant maintenance audit. Once again, these services were solicited. 2 bids were received. One was from Fishback, who happens to be the firm that we're using for our asset management plan for the wastewater treatment plant. And then the other, I believe, was Hubble, Roth, and Clark. And there was a bit of a difference in pricing between the 2 vendors, and we're recommending going with the lower of 2 at the cost of $15,000. That, as a matter of fact, is the budgeted amount for this fiscal year for these services. So it fits well with our budget. Also, Fishbeck, with that asset management plan inventory that they're doing for us, there's some synergies between this project and that project that I think really work out well. So it could have worked out better that Fishbeck was the low bidder in this situation, because I think that we'll get a better product in the end just based upon their involvement with the asset management plan. The maintenance audit is intended to review the maintenance procedures of the wastewater treatment plant to make sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing from the township standpoint, but also from our vendor standpoint, Suez, to make sure that we're maintaining the facility in the ways that it demands to be maintained to ensure longevity. So they'll go through the various processes that we follow, the maintenance schedules that we have, and then take a look at how our assets are being maintained, and then make recommendations for changes and review the processes to see if they deserve or require amending in order to make sure our assets taken care of. So this is not an uncommon thing for wastewater treatment plants to go through. Before I came on board, Suez was going through this as well, which is the wastewater treatment plant that serves 5 communities south of us. The inventory and the information that's generated from this audit is very useful in the operation of the plant. So this is being recommended from the DPS department. Is something we wanted to make sure that we included in the budget and wanted to make it a priority of ours. We also are currently on a 1-year contract with Suez. It was a 1-year contract extension. We wanted to conduct this maintenance audit during that 1-year extension so that we had that information in front of us before we entered into conversations with Suez about a longer term arrangement for operation of the plant. So it's important that we do this now so we have that information complete for when we have those conversations about our business relationship with them in the future, what it looks like. So that's another reason that we'd like to have this accomplished here by this fall so that it's ready for us in the spring for those conversations.
I was encouraged to see that we had the 2 bids and they really weren't all that far apart. So to me, that indicates a fair and upfront bidding process. The other thing is this part of the mandate from the state on the capital, the asset management program?
This is not a mandate of the state. This is just a good practice for the plant. The mandate from the state was more about reviewing your assets, the condition of your assets, and then determining a capital improvement plan moving forward for them, and then making sure that you have the financial capabilities to be able to support that capital improvement plan. So this is something separate from the state mandate, but fits very well with what the state is requiring. So it's very complementary.
Okay, good. I mean, it looks like a good way of doing business, mandate or not. So I have no other questions. Any other questions or comments or need some more information from the board? It's exciting stuff, keeping the wastewater treatment plant going, but it's one of those services that everybody takes for granted until it doesn't work. With that, okay, based upon a recommendation by the Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission, the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby awards a contract to Fishbeck Engineering at a cost of $15,000 to perform a wastewater treatment plant maintenance audit. Those in favor, please by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Thiel. Thank you, DPS Commission, for, again, keeping the services working the way the residents expect.
Appreciate your support tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Derek. That concludes tonight's action.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, Mr. Malvesto.
Both the video and the audio for some of the board members aren't on the meeting here. So we don't really hear their votes. So is there? I just texted Brian. Is there a problem or? I mean,
I don't know.
I can hear you. I can hear Ruta. But I couldn't hear Jim or Carl or Ted.
Jim and Carl are not muted, but they just don't have their video on. And I did have Ted muted because we were getting some feedback from Ted, so I muted him for a little bit just to cut that down.
I'm not muted.
All right,
Yep.
We've heard from Mr. Nelson. Are you an aye vote for the audit?
Yes.
Mr. Bloetscher, are you an aye vote for the audit?
Yes.
And Treasurer Van Ossey, I did hear you chime in. So thanks for pointing that out. I didn't want there to be any. Thanks, Tom. I didn't need to be reading about this tomorrow from the meeting results. So we'll have that ironed out.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and with that, clerk's report, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. One thing I noticed on Zoom, when more than one person talk at the same time, they tend to cancel each other out. So it could also be we were all voting at the same time, and then some of those voices got canceled out. I'd like to start my report by talking about the upcoming election. Deputy Clerk Friel informed me that the ballots for Precinct 1 and 2 were mailed out on Thursday, and they are currently working on mailing out the ballots for Precincts 3 and 4. As you know, we now have 4 live precincts and 4 absent voter counting boards. We want to make sure that when people send in their application for the absent voter ballot, that they don't forget to check the box at the top of the application to choose the party for which they want the ballot. Again, our primaries are open, so you don't need to register as a member of a party before the election, but you do have to select the ballot for which party you want to vote. So if you want to vote on the Republican ballot, you have to request it, and that means you cannot vote anybody on the Democratic ballot and vice versa. So all the candidates from a particular party will be essentially lined up on the same column, and that way you can be sure that you're only voting for the candidates in that one column. The deadline for turning in an absent voter ballot application is actually 5 p.m. on the Friday before the election, but you can come into election hall that Saturday before the election and Monday to actually vote. On those days, you can vote your absent voter ballot in the Township Hall, as well as on election day if you have an absent voter ballot, but and so you can't go to one of the precincts. After you receive your ballot, you have till 8 p.m. on election night to return the ballot. We always do hold on to maybe 10 ballots before we bring the last batch to the counting board, again, to preserve the anonymity of the voters so that it's not just one ballot that we're bringing down to them. If there is an emergency in your family, or like a sudden illness or a family death, and you need to get an emergency ballot because you can't make it to the polls, give our office a call and we will make arrangements with you to get either pick up your ballot or to get one to you. The last thing I wanted to add about the election is that we are always looking for poll inspectors. I know Brian has been taking applications for people to work at the precincts. We need to staff 4 in-person precincts, and we need to staff 4 absent ballot counting boards. Those, I believe, Brian, are going to be housed in the hangar so that we can maintain physical distancing. In the precincts, we will also be prepared to set up the precincts so that both people working at the precinct and people coming in to vote will be able to preserve physical distancing. And of course, there will be hand sanitizer and a requirement to wear masks. So that is about the poll inspectors. On our website, you can also find information on what we pay and some of the perks, such as island pizza and donuts from the baker. So those are things that everybody always seems to be looking for. And I think as far as the election is concerned, that's all I have. Brian, is there anything you want to add?
No, that's good. I'm having some trouble with Wi-Fi here in Township Hall, so sometimes I'm not catching everybody. So okay. I think you got everything.
Well, I just personally, I think you've been doing a phenomenal job keeping the process going, especially during the lockdown period. I know you were doing a lot of work from home, but you were also coming into the hall on a regular basis. And I want to tell you, more than a few people have stopped me to tell me that they appreciated what you're doing. So that's it for me tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask or call me or text me or email. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Brian. Strange times. As we're moving forward for April 2020 investment report shows that the Grosse Ile Township had a total of $16,530,383 invested in various accounts. Those counts can be viewed on my on the website. We have generated interest income of $503, which is an average of about 0.73%. It's starting to go down again, but we anticipated that. The 2020 tax season is just around the corner. We are expecting summer tax bills to be mailed out the beginning of July. Mortgage companies that have requested bills will receive a duplicate copy. All original in early June, Wayne County sent out letters to those owners who failed to pay their prior year 2019 property tax. A notification will also appear on your 2020 forthcoming tax bill regarding unpaid bills. If you receive this letter from Wayne County or you see a notice on your 2020 tax bill, call the Treasurer's office if you should have any questions. As I said at my beginning, strange times. I want to wish everybody a safe and happy 4th of July weekend, because we will not be getting together before then. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you next meeting.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Let's move on to trustee reports, and Trustee Malvesto, you're up first.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Yes, it has been strange times. Our volunteer fire department, and remember, they are volunteers, have been working continuously. A lot of long sleepless nights with the calls that they're making. And speaking with Fire Chief Budny today, to date we have 252 EMS calls and 50 fire calls. So we're on track for another 600 plus total calls for this coming year. I'd like to, because of HIPAA laws, you can't go into a lot of details, but the EMS calls, in some cases have involved the COVID virus. And what I want to say is I talked to Chief Budny today. We're going to wait for a presentation, but they've made arrangements for a piece of equipment. It's an it gives off an ultraviolet light, and it kills virus, bacteria, that sort of thing. And other than the fact it's been on back order for quite a while, it'll give them the ability to completely go through the ambulances and cleanse them using ultraviolet light, as well as any of their equipment, any of their vehicles. So as soon as it comes in, Chief Budny is going to give a small presentation and a demonstration of it. Now, not that you're going to be able to see much in the way of light, but he wants to reassure the residents that they're doing everything possible to remain safe and to protect them as well when they make their calls. So as always, hats off to the EMS. They're a great bunch of guys. I think that's about it for tonight, but thank you all. And as Ted Van Oz said, looking forward to this 4th of July upcoming weekend. Everybody stay safe, enjoy themselves, and just, take the time to enjoy your family as much as possible. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Let's move on to Trustee Nelson. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt Tom as he was talking. I have a question for you, Tom, because you mentioned equipment. Can you give us an update on what's happening with the new fire department equipment garage over at the fire station that we voted on a few months ago?
Yes, the decision was made and backed by the commission, the fire commission, to not build that structure. The cost, even shared costs with the police department, was going to be substantial. And Chief Budny, looking at his budget and looking at things coming up, approached us. We approved it, and has decided not to do the building. What they are doing, they're going to do a few more overhead parking structures, so that all of the police cars and all the required fire equipment that needs to be put under shelter will, be covered. But it's really a matter of budget, and like I say, Chief Beaudry made a decision that at this point in time, it just wasn't wise to move forward. And it's his budget. We have to we understand what he's trying to accomplish, and we're on board with him. So they're not going to build the garage. They're just going to build carports.
Isn't that what we just tore down?
Yes, and the fact that they were older carports, but there's going to be carports put over there. There's going to be other carports put over to the south side of the building, and the police are going to get a few additional carports for their vehicles. It'll reduce the cost by over half, and they thought that was the wise thing to do at this point in time.
Will that entail new architectural or engineering or anything like that?
No, it's essentially going to be, other than an extension of what was already proposed. It's all going to be the same, just more of them.
Okay, so they don't have to make new drawings because.
No. The drawings are already there. It just, instead of buying one, they're going to buy three. Or have, you get what I'm saying, is that instead of just installing one set, they're going to install a few additional ones, and they're going to be double-sided so they can pull in from either side. And in some cases with the trailers, they'll be able to pull straight through. So their dive trailer will be undercover. All those types of things. They'll be undercover, and again, a bit more additional shelter for all the detectives, and Chief Warnick is on board with this. And it's a decision that both chiefs made, jointly.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you told us this tonight.
Not a problem.
Thomas has to come back to the board for approval.
No,
No.
shouldn't have to. I mean, they just chose not to install the or to construct the new garage.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think it needs to come back to the board. If a majority of the board wants to review it, we can always bring it up. But the work is underway. It's a reconfiguration of the old carports, a lot more accessible. Again, if a majority of the board wants to have this brought to them, let me know as soon as possible, and we'll make that happen. But otherwise, I'm happy with it. Russ has explained to me why he's doing what he's doing. It looked like the logical approach, and he is very worried about his budgets. So if he's worried about his budgets, makes it easier for us to get budgets through.
Yeah, and this is joint between
and the police
and the fire. It's not just a decision, solely made by Chief Beaudry and the fire department. Chief Warnick and Harding are in agreement with it, and it gives them a bit more, and it gives the fire department all they need. It was just a wise move to make at this point in time.
Okay. Good. Well, anything else, Mr. Malvesto?
No, that's it.
That's good. Okay, thank you. Let's see who's next. Derek, did you have anything from DPS from Mr. Budny? Did he leave you with any presentation for us? Any updates?
No. I can give you a couple updates though. We finished sludge hauling over at the plant. We were very happy with the vendor that we used. Both tanks got down to 100% capacity after the work that they did, which is actually better than what we were able to achieve last year. And then they started the bar screen project. So that commenced at the beginning of last week. So we're in pretty good shape with that project starting. That should be done in about another 2-3 weeks. I'm sorry, guys. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, again, it's good news. Everybody expects their toilets to flush, and these are the things we have to do to provide that service. So, All right, with that being the DPS report, Mr. Bloetscher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have 3 reports. The first is from the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission. 3 things to report. They are moving forward, researching grants and costs for a bike path that will connect the Grow Road segment of the Groseal bike paths to the Gibraltar Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. We're contemplating using a compacted gravel trail similar to trails that are used in Acadia and other national parks. The second matter is that we're locating and costing a bike trail that will connect Bellevue to Groseal Parkway and Water's Edge and the Iron Bell Trail that runs all the way up to the Upper Peninsula. And the third thing is we are examining the asphalt paths using what I refer to as a ground radar. This summer, as equipment becomes available, it'll tell us by looking into the asphalt and the ground beneath it if there's any stability issues, any issues we need to do with upgrading the asphalt or making repairs that are not obvious to the human eye. Second commission I sit on is Greenways Open Space. We've been in contact with Township Engineer Sahil Sabat for great engineering of both the Thiel lot connecting Ferry to Gage Road, as well as the Meridian Woods Loop Trail that is across from Meridian Elementary School, so that we can improve that and make that a trail that requires much less maintenance. We're also involved in looking for access with Sohio's input from East River that will connect to that loop trail so that it'll be available from both the west, that is the Meridian side, as well as the east, and that is the East River side. And fourth matter with Greenways Open Space, we are doing a cleanup after mapping of all of the areas of debris there. We have one open space member that lives in the area and is taking the time to walk the entire space and map where we need to do a cleanup. So when we have Boy Scouts and other volunteers later in the summer, we can pull all of the stuff out there and bring it to 100% to an open space greenways without all the litter. And finally, with respect to open space greenways, we are tentatively planning a Dump the Junk event. Again, that'll be the weekend after Labor Day. Stay tuned for that. Dan Jaster is again spearheading that, and he's been engaging the Groseal Bridge Company to see what we can do about making transit of the dumpsters as easy as possible. And Chad Novak has some monies left over from the Groseal's Azalea Island Fest that we might be able to use so that we don't lose the deposits on that. And those were for dumpsters. So it is my hope that we're going to be able to have that accomplished at our July meeting. Generally, we don't have a meeting in July, but we are to catch up on a lot of old business, as well as the Dump the Junk for the weekend after Labor Day. I also have the privilege of sitting on the Groseal Police Commission. Couple of short notes, no statistics, just short notes. You may recall that we, again, were the safest community of 10,000 or more in Michigan. Well, this last year, we also are one of the few police departments that came in under budget. That is Chief Warnick and Deputy Chief Harden and Lieutenant Pelland managed to come in $85,000 beneath the budget. The first time that's happened in several years. But their first year, they went through and came in with an $85,000 surplus that we do not need to take from the general fund. I would also indicate that there was a Black Lives rally, a Black Lives Matter rally that occurred on the Groseal Commons. It was very peaceful, very, very well attended, as I understand, with approximately 200 people. And there were absolutely no issues. Groseal has a great force that is well trained. We have great people that live here, and this community had a very remarkable event. I would also indicate the last remarkable event we had was the May 28, 2020 COVID-19 testing. That was the third testing. We had 608 people that came out and participated, and that included, again, the chief participants were Dr. Holly Janeski and Dr. Marla Price. Thanks to them and to all the volunteers that came out. And finally, we have had some questions regarding our police officers' training. I don't know if Chief Warnick wants to weigh in on that today, or if you want to do that at the next meeting, Mark, but we have had some questions about how well trained our officers are and what the training is that they receive.
I have a couple things, but I'm going to do one. We're working on it right now, but I do have a couple things tonight I could talk about. You want me to do that right now, or?
I would, Chief. Brian, with your consent.
I know we're looking at getting a consolidated response. We're getting an organized probe, for lack of a better word, coming from a number of fronts, but asking the same questions, and they're clearly not something someone would organically just think of, wake up in the morning and think, gosh, I wonder if our police are getting de-escalation training. I'll ask. This is an organized effort. It's probably nationwide. And again, I sent everybody the list of the training our officers do receive. It's extensive. I'm very proud of how professional our force is. Chief, if you want to, I mean, you know what's going on far more than I do within the force. So if there's something this board and the people listening need to know about our force, you know, we've already posed the questions, so you might as well, whatever you can give. And then again, we talked about forming a township-wide approved response to send to these, I will call them probing agencies. So Chief, if you want to get us more up to speed, then obviously you know more about this than I do. So the floor is yours, Chief.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we're working on something right now that we're going to give out to the people on Facebook or on the township Facebook. Also, I know there's a few questions that Brian sent me earlier about someone was going to ask today about de-escalation training. We have that every year at our defensive tactics training. We have, we've been doing that I've been doing it for 34 years now. And also in a few months, we're sending a member of our management team and a sergeant to a school for de-escalation training, that they can come back and train us. So it would save us a lot of money sending everybody to school. So we're going to have that, but we have it every year. And like I say, I'm very proud of our department. We're just a great department. We don't really have any problems, but I know we need the training, and everybody's watching us and around the whole country. So I'm not too worried about that, but we will have more training, and we do have it every year. Also, I know there was a question on vest cameras. We looked into that. Well, back in 2015, we had in-car cameras installed or upgraded, and it cost a great amount of money. I'm not even sure how much it cost. Last year, we had four new in-car cameras, which cost $26,000. Right now, we have been looking into the body cameras, and it's anywhere from $77,000 to $109,000 for a 5-year contract. But the way the country it's going right now, they might vote that everybody's going to have it. I don't know what they're going to do right now, but I wouldn't jump on anything right now. They might pay for it. Who knows what the government's going to do. But there's also grants too we could look at. But at this time, I don't believe we need cameras. What the crime we have in our department or in our township, but that doesn't mean we won't get them. So we're still looking at it. But like I said, by next meeting, we'll have a nice little memo or statement here about how we feel about everything that's going on in our country at this time. And it's going to work out real well. And that's all I have right now. But I will have a lot more at the next meeting.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? Uja, Madam Clerk.
Well, I just wanted to chime in to Carl and the chief. After the peaceful gathering in May, as you know, we got together and talked a little bit. And I think beyond the conversations about police de-escalation and some of those conversations being had around the country, one of the things the chief and deputy chief and I and you, Brian, with one of the writers from the Island Beacon talked about is also having a conversation about what is working in our department. Ken Pellin spent many years as our community policing officer, going into the schools, building trust with the kids in the schools, building trust within the community. I know that sometimes is lacking in some of the more inner city neighborhoods that we see and talk about. But I know from friends and acquaintances that because of the demographics of our island, sometimes people of color feel like they're being singled out when they come to the island. And I think it's important that we reassure people that when they're being pulled over, it's not because of racial profiling. It's not because of anything other than we have a valid concern to pull somebody over. And I think those are some of the dialogues I think would be helpful for us to have within the community. And I don't think that should be something that would be hard for us to put together. So I guess I'm putting my voice out there saying I think that would also be time well spent for us.
Okay, we should be able to
I agree.
Put something together. Yep.
Yep. I agree.
While we got the chief on the hook here, I did want
Chief,
to a question.
Chief, one thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Jim Nelson, I can't begin to thank you enough for being under budget. That is great news, especially when you guys do what you do with what you have. But thank you so much for your team being under budget.
Thank you, Jim. Also, I just want to mention, I know it's not a joking matter, but a lot of people ask us and send me messages about chokeholds and all that, what they saw on TV. We do not use chokeholds. I've been a police officer almost 35 years, and we were taught immediately in the police academy in Detroit that we don't use chokeholds, and no one does use chokeholds in Michigan unless for fatal force. So that's one thing I want to get out of the way. Neck restraints, we don't use any of that.
Thanks, Chief.
I mean, I'm not making light of it,
That's good to know.
but people ask us that all the time, and they're serious when they ask us. But I'm just letting everybody know we do not use that unless it's fatal force. That's the only way you can use that in Michigan.
And what is the term fatal force?
Well, if your life's in danger or another officer or another person's life's in danger.
Okay.
That's the only way you can use that. Yes, because that's fatal force. A chokehold, like you saw in Minneapolis, that was fatal force. I don't know if that was a neck restraint or something, but it wasn't right what happened.
Yeah, agreed.
Brian, I might add briefly that Melanie Young from the Trenton Trib Island Beacon has contacted both the Grosse Ile and the Trenton Police Department for an article that she plans to put together for the July edition that's going to explain some of the training and some of the various things that we've just discussed. So look for that in the paper when it comes out. Very good. Good.
Yep, we're working on that.
Yep. We'll finally get the police side of the story.
Okay.
Anything else for Chief? Tom?
I might as well throw my 2 cents in. Chief Warnick.
Yes, sir.
I over the years I've had several occasions to ride with the officers. I'm always on an off shift. Day shift is far too busy, but it wouldn't hurt for other members of the board to take an evening, ride with the officers, and see what a normal patrol shift is like. Help them understand the everyday workings of our patrolmen. It's very enlightening. It's educational, and gives you a better idea of what they go through every night. It's amazing how small this island becomes. I like to joke with them that the first hour of the shift they ride counterclockwise, then the second hour they go counterclockwise just to break things up. But you'd be surprised how much activity there is during the off shift hours, and it would do everybody a little bit of good just to view it, spend some time with them, get to know them better. So just a suggestion. I say I've done it a few times. It's been a while. I'd like to set that up with you again. But guys, take the opportunity. Our patrolmen are a great group of guys, and they put up with us. So have at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure, anytime.
don't know, on the original subject, Carl, you mentioned looking for a grant for access to the Gibraltar Bay unit. Is that, we tried for a flat federal lands access program grant a year ago. Is that along the same lines?
Yes, what we're looking for, the chair of BPAC, Brian Polic, has turned into quite a individual that is able to look for grants as a number of different areas, not just FLAP, but with other programs, federal programs that he has discovered and he works on, as does Dan Jaster. I think Dan went to a all-day seminar for grant writing in connection with BPAC, bicycle pedestrian activities. And that happens to be the job that Brian Polic has with SEMCOG. So they are coming up with something different. We did not receive that grant. That was about 3 years ago. It was about, as I recall, around $100,000 would have connected the areas that we're looking at now. The idea with a crushed trail, at least as a beginning, is that it's much, much cheaper. It'll certainly be much less to install with asphalt. And we're looking to keep the cost down on that, but that would be a nice connector to have. That also gets you to Mesa and Hickory Islands.
And it would get the bicycles and the pedestrians off of that narrow, windy stretch of East River Road. Okay, what happened? It got real quiet. I'm getting nervous.
I don't know where Carl went.
My last question, Carl. It's, I think I have confidence that Mr. Polic can get this moving in the right direction. Let's see. Any other comments, Mr. Bloetscher? You still have the floor.
No, sir, I'm done. I yield to Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson.
Wow, I get the introduction from Carl tonight. It's pretty special. Mr. Loftus, I thank you very much for the time. The first thing tonight, Ms. O'Farrell will not be with us because she is ill and not available to be in a Zoom meeting. It's not life-threatening, but she is not able to be in on the meeting tonight. My second thing that she wanted me to report was that the pool opened today, June 22nd. Great job to all that participated in making that happen. Such a wonderful thing that we have here on Grozil, of course. Next is we're waiting for lower water levels to install the dock risers. They're all set to go. Bridget Hurst is all set to go, but Mother Nature, and we were afraid of this, may or may not cooperate.
Tim, I think we lost you.
Yeah.
Suffer with some high water here. So that's the update from Ms. O'Farrell. I want to thank Brian Friel for doing a great job as usual. He gets us all on Zoom, and it's sometimes a challenge because, well, speaking for myself, I'm not the highest tech person in the world, but thank you, Brian. And my last thing tonight is that I want to thank Derek Thiel for having his dog on tonight, because that made us all feel pretty good. So thanks, Derek. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but I'm in these emergency management conference calls. The National Weather Service member of the team expects water levels to start falling around the 1st of July. The grounds aren't as saturated as they used to be. The spring rains have pretty much run off. So hopefully around the 1st of July, water levels will start receding. We'll get part of the summer back at our marina, hopefully. No guarantees. He said a typical weatherman, though, no guarantees. So with that, we'll move on to the rest of the reports. Township Attorney, Mr. Assorti.
Thanks, Mr. Supervisor. With things opening back up, we have a couple projects, real estate in nature, that we have the opportunity to move forward with now with the township. Normally this time of year, we'd start to see a few Michigan Tax Tribunal full hearings. I'm happy to report to the board that there are none of those right now pending.
Good.
Nothing's been filed in front of the full tribunal. And finally, the 33rd District Court has been conducting hearings via Zoom. And we just got notification late last week that that's probably going to continue through the month of July. But it seems to be working okay. We're getting through some of them. It's difficult for some of the defendants that aren't used to that process, but we're getting through it. And we're making sure that everybody has their rights preserved at the same time as making sure that we go forward with the prosecutions we need to.
All right. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Assorti. Manager, Mr. Ream.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a handful of brief items this evening to report to the board and the community. Item number one, Meridian Road is extremely busy with traffic with the Parkway Bridge being closed. And I spoke to a resident who was concerned about crossing at Ferry Road in Meridian on the bike path. So if I could just remind everyone to take a little extra caution in that curve area. And I actually spoke to the chief and he's going to keep an eye on that for us. Second item, Annette Wertsmith in the Finance Department put in her retirement papers while we were off, or right before we were off. So we were never able to have any formal recognition. We were behind on advertising. So she will be finished in August, but we have posted the finance taxing assistant position for hire, and that is open until June 30th, which is next week. So that posting is on the website and on the app. So as instructed, email me any interest. As mentioned earlier, the township is open for business. The residents and the employees have done a great job taking everything serious. Social distancing and the mask is extremely important to me, and I want to keep everyone safe. And I think everyone's doing a great job. I want to say thanks to all. And we do have the new drop box installed, which is the larger of the two, is the new one. That says clerk and DPS building on it. We've had a few residents by mistake drop their water payment into the clerk box. It's okay. It's not a problem. The same people check it and their desks are right by each other. So it's not an issue. But I do want to encourage the residents, definitely do use the drop box if all possible. It's great that you come in the building, but if not, we want to limit activity if best possible. The employee item that I had to address over the past month is the new COVID handbook. And this, it's all the CDC guidelines, all the training requirements. And I just wanted to report to the board and the managers that I'm going to be also asking that you share that with the commissioners just for information piece. So they do just that, learn from it, and move forward safely. And the last item is our next meeting is July 13th. I do, from my office, I have a couple items that I think it's important that we have a closed session on. We have not had a closed session at the advice of the attorney because we have not been able to meet in person. So if we do that, our issue is, and I say this just so people understand, if we have a public meeting in the public boardroom and you have to the requirement of social distancing, we can't fit many people in that room. So we're going to be exploring ways to do just that. If we do have a meeting in person, we might have the public available for comment via electronic device. We just have to figure the best way to address it. Or maybe we just go back to Zoom for the meeting and have our face-to-face in the closed session, socially distanced, of course. So, as a couple of you said, it's different times, but I think we have all done very well, and everyone's been very patient. And with the election coming up, we really need to still take this all seriously. So with that, Mr. Supervisor, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ram.
Brian?
As usual, I'm going to be all over the page. There's a lot going on. I'll start with, and I hope I can put these pieces together. We had a rescue off of Stony Island, a personal watercraft accident. And apparently there was a 44-year-old man from Lincoln Park, was on a PWC, nobody said what brand, whatever it was, hit one of the new retaining walls at a high rate of speed for reasons unknown, was very seriously injured. There were some island residents, young lads out in a fishing boat. There were some paddle boarders that all came to his assistance. They called dispatch. Our officers arrived on the scene. I believe it was AJ Benson. They picked him up in their fishing boat while the paddle boarders were stabilizing, keeping the man's head out of the water to keep him alive. AJ went out in the boat. They actually used the paddle board as a backboard and towed him ashore to basically at the foot of, I think it was at Bellevue and East River, where Officer Counts and an ambulance was waiting for him. They got him up into our ambulance. Our rescue crews got him to the toll bridge where they were met by a Riverview ambulance, which had different capabilities to keep him alive. He was very seriously injured, bleeding, broken bones. They got him to Wyandotte. I get the Henry Ford. They keep changing the names, but Henry Ford Wyandotte, where he was stabilized. He actually only spent about a week or so there, and then he was released to Heritage for rehab. Without the help of the Good Samaritans, the Grosse Ile residents were willing to help, our police and fire team, it had been a recovery operation. So another save for our guys and the residents who care about each other. So again, hopefully I can get some more of the details on that. We asked AJ about it. It's nothing heroic, just part of the job. It's part of the job. That and strapping on body armor every day is part of the job. Let's see. Again, while we're mentioning our police force, the high school graduation last Wednesday, with the police escort getting the groups of cars from the soccer fields through town to the high school to receive their diplomas. It was a parade. Actually, it was 5 parades because they were doing it, I think, 15 cars at a time. And we had police and reserves running back and forth, making sure this was done safely, and there were no accidents, no incidents. Kids got their diplomas. We got to wave them going by. They got some kind of graduation recognition. It was a lot of fun. And of course, Kim O'Farrell was helping orchestrate things down at the soccer fields because she just does a little bit of everything. So again, that was a great recovery. I'm seeing all these other small towns on their lampposts, on their billboards, the pictures of the kids who didn't have a real graduation, didn't have a prom, and what they're doing just to make it the special event, high school graduation, the special event that it is. But we did a good job in Grosse Ile. I have a Monday morning 12th District leadership call with Debbie Dingle, including this Monday. Last Monday's call was interesting because there's an infrastructure bill among the other ones that are getting marked up in Congress right now, but an infrastructure bill involving, and one of the things involved is bringing control of the trains from the federal government back to the states. And I've written in support of that. I pinned her down every chance I could get. I tried to pin down Gary Peters and Debbie Stabenow on getting some motion on this, because we all know what it's like to sit and look at a train, and the railroads, they don't care, they don't have to. But if we can get some of those controls back to the states, we can look after the safety issues. the other commerce that isn't being moved because the trains are blocking the road. And we know at $20 to $30 million per grade separation, we're not going to get many grade separations. But if we can control the stoppages, have some control over the stoppages, when it becomes less costly to window the train and let traffic through than it is to pay the fines, I think a lot of our railroad caused congestion will go away. But we'll see. And when we get the details on that, Jim Perry, I notified him. He's going to be working on it from the DCC side. He'll be following with Debbie's aid, or, I'm sorry, Mrs. Dingle's aides, and get the details. And I'll try to keep everybody advised on. We may need a letter writing campaign or something. But to get the, again, this is something that is really going to affect metropolitan areas, and it just makes sense. Let's get to control the traffic regulation, the train regulation back to the states where it belongs. So I'll keep you advised of that. Another thing we learned today on the unemployment insurance, who would have thought that when the government's willing to give out money, some people would find a way to steal it. Gail McLeod, the new mayor up in Allen Park, said I believe it's her husband, got a notification from wherever office it is in Michigan that controls the unemployment, and said, you've been rejected. Well, he hadn't applied for it, but somebody from a previous data breach somewhere, somebody had all the personal information they needed to file an unemployment claim for him. This is going to be happening more and more and more. And it's, again, it's just people can look at it as unregulated money. And if they get to your unemployment claim before you do, you're going to be out of luck. So I'm going to be putting up she gave some links and some information you can do to check on status and what you can do to prevent scams and fraud. So I'll get that out. Look for that on GI Connect, and we'll get it on the website. Let's see. Island-wide garage sale, unfortunately, has been canceled. Margie thought that because of we wouldn't get any off-island traffic because of the bridge, and we're still not sure on personal contact or the distancing requirements. So we thought it just best to let that go for a year. So if you can't sell it, you might just have to, if we do dump the junk, you might just have to dump it. Or I don't know if St. James is going to have their rummage sales. We'll have to wait and see on that. But anyway, that has been canceled this year. And it's unfortunate because it was a lot of fun. But moving on, let's see. Dale mentioned Meridian, and I'm getting a lot of reports. We're starting to call it the Meridian 500. And I know the extra 3 miles a lot of people have to go is just crushing them in their personal schedules. But I've seen driving stunts there that just scare me to death. So here's some numbers. It's almost, like I said, it's almost exactly 3 miles. And if you drive it at 45 miles an hour, it takes 4 minutes and 1 second. And if you drive it at 35 miles an hour, it takes 5 minutes and 17 seconds. So to save 1 minute and 16 seconds, you can risk somebody's life. You can cause an accident. You can spend a lot more of your time explaining to a police officer, explaining to a grieving family, or sitting in court. So sit back, relax, enjoy that extra minute cruising along, getting home. It's a minute. It's a whole minute. Again, I've seen things that just scare me to death. Additionally, we all know we have a high water. Boaters, I'm asking you to watch your wakes. It's not cool to throw your wake on somebody's lawn. It's not cool to wash out somebody's seawall, somebody's dock, because you want to run your jet ski 50 feet off and attempt to show off people. Wayne County will be out enforcing it. We'll have our guys out enforcing it. We have counties enforcing to 500 feet. It's not too much to ask. So keep that in mind. You know, you are responsible for your wake. And with those 2 safety lectures, that, and I'll just go on a little bit. We have a great system of bike paths. Obviously they're just joint use paths and trails. There's plenty of room for everybody on that. You can pass each other and still be safe. You don't have to walk out in the street and have 30 feet of separation. If you're moving, at least carry a mask with you. That's Dr. Sringapalli's recommendation. You don't need to be wear it while you're outside walking. Have one with you. If you need to stop and talk to someone, put it on. If someone else falls and you want to help, put the mask on. If you fall and need help, put your mask on. Have one with you, but enjoy your walk, enjoy the bike paths we put in, and use them. Please don't walk on the road because you're afraid you're going to pass somebody on the bike path. Use the bike paths. Cyclists, I'm seeing good, cycling safety. People are riding their bicycles with traffic. Those who ride fast are on the street. Those who ride slow and leisurely, like me, are on the bike paths. A lot of separation, safety, consideration of other people. Motorists, bicycles are vehicles. They have the right to that lane as much as you do. Don't bluff them. Again, an extra few seconds to safely pass a bicycle, the safety get past a jogger where there isn't a bike path or a trail handy. Invest those few seconds in your safety and their safety and the safety of the whole community. We're only here for a little while. It's only a few seconds. So with that lecture, I'll finish my comments. And since we have no discussion items, we can open up to public comment. I'll turn it over to Brian, the gatekeeper. Oh, Tom, I'm sorry.
Tom, you got something?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, and I appreciate everything you said about our bike paths. And Dale, the comments made to you about the bike path crossing at Ferry and Meridian are very real. I ride that 4 or 5 days a week, and it's when I come to that crossing, I get off my bike, and especially to the south because of that blind curve and because people are coming around there rather quickly. It's best to get off your bike, make sure the traffic is clear, and walk the bike across. Attempting to ride across with oncoming traffic can only lead to something bad. And the other thing is, I got to tell you, I'm on that bike path again 4 or 5 days a week, if not more. And the people that are using it for walking and riding are so friendly. You come across them, and everybody's got a smile on your face. Everybody's saying good morning. It is so refreshing to experience that on a daily basis. Hats off to everybody. They're using it, they're appreciating it, and what an asset. But Ferry and Meridian, get off your bike, walk it across. That's the best thing you can do. So, again, didn't mean to step on your toes, but I'm there frequently. So I understand exactly what the concern is. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Tom. That was, thank you.
Brian?
Yeah,
Brian?
Mr. Nelson.
Can I have one more second to?
Absolutely.
For a shout out here. Several staff members have names that have been talked about tonight, all the way, from fire to Township Hall staff and people out from the island helping people. But at the end of the day, the township staff does a wonderful job on this island. And I know not everybody's always happy with the decision that's made, but I tell you what, I'm in here 2 or 3 days a week, and they do a great job. So I just want a little shout out to the township staff. Thank you.
I think every so often we need to look back at ourselves, remember how lucky we are to be here, people we work with the assets this island offers to the residents, and just a special place.
Amen.
Okay, with that, we'll see how special it remains. We'll open up to public comment. I'll put Mr. Friel as the gatekeeper.
Okay, I think we'll start with Aaron Himmelsbach. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Aaron, are you with us?
Yeah. Hello? I'm unmuted.
There she is.
Can you hear me?
We hear you. It's just very quiet.
Oh, okay. I'll try to speak louder. I have a few questions. Chief Warnick already spoke to one in part. So first of all, I really appreciate the police department on this island. I have a young family, and I love raising them on such a safe community. But I think right now we have an opportunity to really reflect and make sure that we are maintaining those high standards at our police department. And I'm pleased to hear that there is de-escalation training that all the officers receive. I also noticed when I was looking at the 5-year strategic plan in 2019, that was when the body cameras were slated to be purchased. So I'm just wondering, it sounds like that didn't happen. Is that just no longer in the plan?
Hey, Aaron, since you were nice enough, we usually don't, it's usually comment but not questions, but my initial comment way back when was, if you have a question, send it to us first so that we can research the answer. You have done that. So that puts you on the A list, and we will attempt to answer your question. The police 5-year plan is under review. We need to look at the efficacy of, body cams are all the rage right now because the last 2 incidents didn't have body cam that made national news, but they weren't involved. So we're going to review the efficacy of body cams versus the cost and the administrative hurdles that body cams generate, and see if it's something that would make a difference, see if it's a difference we can afford. That's kind of my position on it right now. Bloetscher, you may have more in-depth knowledge, or Chief. And neither of them are weighing in. So basically, that's with my conversations with both Chief Warnick and Deputy Chief Harden. It's something we're going to look at, study it. I'm not convinced the efficacy of body cams, but I'll go with the experts nationwide, and we'll just review it. But you got the data on the training. I think you were as impressed as I was, the extent of the training that our officers get. And again, we haven't had any problems. I remember when we did budget for the dash cams, it was very expensive. Those are very effective when the officers know how to use them, and our guys do. It gives you a much clearer picture of what's going on rather than the up close jittery, usually showing nothing that you get from a body cam. And Mr. Sordi, did you have a comment to weigh? Because you are the legal expert on this. Did you have something you wanted to add to the question on the body cam and where we're going?
As you indicated, there's a lot involved with that.
I love it when he backs me up. Sure. Does that answer your question, Aaron?
Yes, and I know that Chief Warnick also said that there's more information to come out in, I'm not sure if it's something that's going to be mailed to the house or posted on the website. So I look forward to reading that. Okay,
and we will be, forming a township's position on that, and a number of questions that have come from a number of different sources.
Sure.
Okay.
And I did have another question on a different topic. I was wondering if it would be possible to get a library return drop box on the island, because I know that our taxes go towards the millage, and I know that there's already a library network van that drives around, and I'm just thinking, while the bridge is closed, and then also in inclement weather, it might be nice to have somewhere that we can return our books on the island without having to drive off island. And I hate my library fines. I don't like getting left.
That was the one I couldn't answer. Mrs. Darzniak is our rep to the community library. We'll get an answer for you. I think it's, yes, we want people reading. We want our kids continuing their education, and we want to make it easy. So if there's
I think Dale has some information, actually.
Pardon?
I think Dale has
people. Dale.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I did speak to Ann Darzniak, who's our liaison, and she said that the drop boxes are on the agenda for the library in all their communities. Obviously, with COVID and the delay, they haven't formulated a final plan, but it is something they are evaluating and hoping to do. So I'll pass this on and let them know that there is interest in people or would really like to see that.
Do that. I think, yeah, we do have interest. Again, with the bridge situation, one car coming over to pick up the books rather than a bunch of people avoiding those crushing library fines. It just makes more sense. So, Aaron, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Anybody else? Mr. Friel?
Judy.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Good to see you again, even if it is over Zoom. Thiel. Can the township do anything more proactively to speak with Port? That's the plan. I'm on the community advisory group that meets every month to discuss it. The Nabil, the head engineer, confirmed at the last meeting that definitely is the plan. It's not going to be good for Grosseal if an intermodal shipping port goes in there. I know the township passed a resolution against it. The rezoning is going to be coming up on a vote in Trenton very soon. And if we're going to do something, we should probably try to do it now. The answer that I've gotten in the past has been that there's not really much we can do because we don't own it. But it's worth a try to at least have a talk with the mayor and the city council there about what to be able to do to stop that. So that's one. I had a question for Uta, but if it can't be answered, I can email her separately about, somebody called me and asked me where do they write in their name for precinct delegate on the ballot. If they filed the proper paperwork, they couldn't see the spot on the ballot to write it in. So I thought maybe if the township could do a posting on their site or on their Facebook page, that might be helpful. So that people can see where that happens. And lastly, I was one of the organizers of the Black Lives Matter event that was extremely well attended, and I was very happy to see that. I was a little disappointed to see it the way that it was written up in the Groseal Grand in your column, Supervisor, that the lack of notice, you found out through a Facebook post 48 hours before. That's not. The event came up very quickly, as most protests do. The minute that we had a final answer on where it was going to be, we emailed and invited all of the township officials, the police chief and the fire chief. So I just wanted that clarified for the record, that we didn't just spring it on everybody. It happened organically, as most events of that nature do. I was very thankful for the police department and their presence, not because I feared anything from any of the protesters, but because the only threat of violence was by a local loon who went on his Facebook page and bragged about the amount of ammo and guns that he had and who invited Antifa to the island. So that was the only negative thing about the entire event, came from somebody who hated the whole idea of it and went on and on and on about his Facebook page. But the event was nice. I don't think there's any probing agencies that are feeding anybody any questions. I think that citizens who are tired of seeing this happen again and again, not necessarily in our community, but in communities around us, are looking at what's happening nationally and saying, what can I do to help? What can I do to make this stop? And so I heard the phrase, what do your, does your police report department have de-escalation training from a pastor at a webinar that I attended from a local church? It's not an organized group that's feeding anybody any questions. It's when you're citizens that are concerned about something, you research and you find out what questions you need to ask to try to make things better. This is a wonderful community. This is a beautiful community, and we have a lot of kind and caring people here, but there's always room for improvement. And I think the willingness of the police department to do the training and to do whatever they can and to say, of course, we can always be better is just another great asset of this island. And I appreciate that. So, and again, I want Groseal Citizens for Justice and Change is a Facebook group that started as a result of the event, and anybody who's interested is happy to join us on Facebook. We're reading a couple books. We're finding out what we can do to be anti-racist, and that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mega. Mr. Friel.
You're muted.
Brian, you handle this.
Oh, okay. As far as the precinct delegate, it's on the backside of the ballot. Obviously, you pick whichever party you're filling in. And
Brian, there's feedback. I can hardly hear you.
Oh, really? So on the backside of the ballot, you would have the precinct delegate section. And then you would pick whichever party you're choosing to write in on. To the left of the oval, you would write the name in, and then you'd fill into that oval. All right, but I will do a post also, because that was just to make sure everybody
Do you understand, Mega?
A bit Darth Vader-ish there.
Yeah.
Our Wi-Fi is not very good, Dale.
It's pretty scary, Brian. Pretty scary. Any other comments from the public zooming in?
Amy Jarecki?
No, not this evening.
Okay. And the only other two I have on here are both just phone numbers. I don't have any names. So do we have any other public comment?
Brian, I just wanted to add, because when my husband and I attended the Democratic Club Zoom meeting, a member asked what the return postage was for a ballot. And I meant to say that during the clerk's report. I think he told me it was a forever stamped or just about 55 cents. So for people who are curious how much postage to put on their ballot when they return it, it's one forever stamp or 55 cents. Thank you.
That should answer a few questions. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. Apparently there's no other public comment offered. With that, and Mr. Budny isn't here to make the motion, so I'll adjourn. I move we adjourn. Waiting for a second.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
And opposed? So we'll make it at 8:57. Great meeting. Thanks everybody for participating. Judy, thanks for joining us. And Aaron, you too. And everybody have a safe 4th of July. Fireworks are explosives. They're dangerous toys. Be good. Take care of yourselves. And we'll see you in July. Meeting is hereby adjourned. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.